I wanted Emma's birthday to be perfect. She'd been stressing about turning 30 like it was some irreversible milestone. 3 decades, she kept saying, with this dramatic little groan, as if her life were somehow entering its final act instead of, you know, barely reaching intermission. I thought it was kind of cute, even if a little over the top. But Emma was always a little theatrical. It was part of her charm. So I decided to do something special, something memorable. I rented out a banquet hall in downtown Chicago, not far from the river. High ceilings, beautiful old brickwork, the kind of place that looks timeless without feeling stuffy. It cost me a bit more than I wanted to spend, but I figured it was worth it. She deserved to feel seen, to feel celebrated. I planned every detail down to the hour. White linens, pillar candles in tall glass vases, a string quartet for the cocktail hour. Yes, I went there. And then a curated playlist of songs I knew she loved. The tables were long, family style, with simple greenery and gold-accented tableware. It was elegant without being too flashy, exactly the balance Emma always claimed to love. The morning of the party, I woke up early, too wired to sleep. I spent hours checking my checklist, making sure nothing had been forgotten. It felt like prepping for a wedding or something. I wanted the moment she walked in to be unforgettable, for her to look around and just know how much thought and care I'd put into making her feel loved. I got to the venue a few hours early. Staff were already there arranging tables, fussing over napkin folds and light levels. I walked around with the event manager, double-checking placements, asking about the timing for food service, making sure the slideshow I'd prepared, yes, a slideshow, would run smoothly on the projector. Emma had no idea I'd gone this far. She thought we were doing dinner at a rooftop place with a few friends. The big surprise was still under wraps. About 40 minutes into setup, I walked down a side corridor near the restrooms looking for someone from the catering team. That's when I ran into one of the security guys. Middle-aged, big mustache, badge clipped to his polo, friendly guy. We'd talked earlier when I was loading in the wine. "Hey," he said, waving me over casually. "Your lady's already here. She's back in that storage room with some other guy. They've been in there a while." I stopped mid-step. "Wait, what?" He jerked his thumb toward the door behind him. "That room there, with the keypad, they went in maybe 20 minutes ago. Tall guy, glasses, kind of geeky looking. Said he was helping with a presentation or something." "Jason?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. "Yeah," he said, snapping his fingers. "That was the name. Jason." My jaw tensed. I forced a nod, thanked him, and made my way toward the door like I wasn't freaking out inside. I don't know what I expected. Rationally, I told myself it was nothing. Emma was always super involved in her own events. Maybe she was practicing her speech or doing last-minute coordination. Maybe she was helping Jason upload something. Maybe she was trying to surprise me with a little thank you. People have secrets during party prep all the time, right? Still, something about it didn't sit right. She hadn't told me she was coming early. And Jason. Well, Jason had always rubbed me the wrong way. I'd met him a few times at her company mixers. He worked in her department, marketing and strategy or something equally vague. Tall, lanky guy with horn-rimmed glasses and that perpetual "I read startup blogs" energy. Emma used to mention him in passing, called him harmless, funny, a total nerd. Once, she even joked that he reminded her of me in college. And I don't know why, but that comparison made something twist in my gut. I reached the door and knocked once. No answer. I waited a beat, then slowly opened it. The storage room was dim, lit only by a single overhead bulb. Shelves of extra candles and tablecloths lined the walls. And standing there, or rather stepping out of the far corner, was Emma. She had a wine glass in one hand, her phone in the other. Her hair was slightly tousled, not a mess, but just off enough that I noticed. A few strands stuck to the side of her cheek, like she'd been leaning on something. She was already dressed for the party. Sleek black dress, silver heels, her favorite earrings. She looked perfect. Too perfect. She smiled when she saw me, not startled, not caught, just cool as ever. "Oh, hey," she said, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "You're early." "I could say the same," I said, keeping my voice even. She laughed lightly and held up her wine glass. Guilty, I wanted to make sure Jason got the slideshow uploaded properly. You know how tech is. It always glitches last minute. I glanced past her. No sign of Jason. Where is he now? I asked. She shrugged, taking a sip. Went to check on the projector. Or maybe the lighting guy. I don't know. He's being a lifesaver tonight. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do without him. She said it so casually, like I hadn't just walked in on her, stepping out of a locked room with a coworker she never mentioned outside of work. Like there was no reason to feel suspicious. I nodded slowly, my stomach still tightening. Everything okay? Emma tilted her head slightly, giving me a playful smile. Of course. Why? No reason, I said. And that was that. She kissed me on the cheek, told me the setup looked amazing, and breezed past me like nothing had happened. Left a faint trail of perfume and wine in the air. I stood there for a moment, trying to piece together the feelings knocking around inside me. I'd never been the jealous type. I always thought relationships were built on trust, and up until that day, I had trusted Emma without question. We didn't have one of those dramatic, over-the-top love stories. Ours was quiet, steady, practical. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 3. We paid bills on time, shared chores, made travel spreadsheets. We didn't argue much, and when we did, it was usually over stupid things, like who forgot to buy eggs or whose turn it was to fold laundry. But something about that moment, the way she stepped out of that room with Jason nowhere in sight, the calm confidence in her voice, the fact that she had wine before guests even arrived, something about all of it made the hairs on my neck stand up. Maybe it was the way she smiled at me like she was the one keeping secrets. Maybe it was the smoothness of her excuse, like it had been rehearsed. Or maybe it was the timing. 20 minutes alone, door shut, no warning she'd be there early. Whatever it was, something changed in me right then. It was like a camera lens finally snapping into focus. For the first time in a long time, I saw her not as my wife, not as the woman I adored, but as someone I didn't completely understand. And that terrified me. I walked back to the main hall in a daze. Staff were lighting candles. Someone had started testing the music. Guests would start arriving soon, and I still had 100 little details to finalize. But all I could think about was that room, that locked door, that damn wine glass in her hand. I tried to shake it off, to go back into host mode, to pretend nothing was off. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. After all, Emma was always efficient. She liked being early, liked managing things herself. She was probably just making sure the tech ran smoothly, right? Maybe Jason really was just helping her upload slides, like she said. Maybe I was being dramatic, paranoid, insecure, all things I never thought I'd be. But the feeling stuck. Even after the party started and I had a drink in my hand and people were laughing around me. Even after Emma kissed me on the cheek during the welcome toast. I couldn't shake it. There was something in the air between us. Like a thin layer of dust you only notice when the light hits it just right. Something that had been there for a while now, only I hadn't wanted to see it. The worst part was how natural she looked. Comfortable. Effortless. Like none of it meant anything. That scared me more than if she looked nervous or flustered. That night after the party ended and we got home, I lay in bed next to her and tried to fall asleep. She was scrolling through photos on her phone, laughing at the ones our friend Maya had sent over. I was staring at the ceiling, trying to find something solid to hold on to in my own thoughts. You okay? She asked. Yeah. Just tired, I said. She leaned over and kissed me. Thanks for tonight. It was amazing. I nodded, smiled, said, of course, and rolled over. But inside, my head was spinning. The next morning, I opened her phone while she was in the shower. I know how that sounds. I've never done that before. We weren't that couple, but something in me had cracked open the night before, and the urge to know, to confirm or disprove the thing gnawing at me, it was overwhelming. Of course, her messages with Jason were clean. Just a few texts about the party. Thanks again for helping me. Don't forget the file for the slideshow. Can we add that quote to slide 7? Nothing remotely suspicious, but she had deleted her call logs. Every single one of them. Even FaceTime history. Clean as a whistle. Not one call, not one record. Who does that? When she came out of the shower, I was already back in bed, pretending to scroll through Instagram. I didn't ask her anything. I couldn't. Not yet. But from that moment on, I started seeing things differently. Over the next few weeks, a pattern started to emerge. Not all at once. Not in bold, unmistakable strokes, but in tiny shifts, little details that kept piling up. For one, she was working late, constantly. I mean, Emma had always been ambitious, but this was different. There were meetings after hours, impromptu team strategy sessions, late-night Slack messages. When I asked her if everything was okay at work, she just brushed it off. It's just busy season, she'd say, but she worked in marketing. Busy season? Then there was the perfume. It was different, newer, sharper, more expensive. She'd always worn light, floral scents, but this one was bold, something you'd wear if you wanted to be noticed. I remember asking her about it one night when she came home smelling like a department store sample counter. "Oh," she said with a shrug, "a client sent over a holiday gift box. Had perfume and lotion in it. Figured I'd try it out." She said it so casually like it didn't mean anything. But I knew her. Emma was picky about scents. She'd returned candles because the vanilla was too synthetic. Now she's just casually wearing some random perfume from a client? Right. Then I started noticing things around the apartment. Lingerie tags in the trash, and not from the stores she normally liked. These were from boutique places, high-end brands she'd once called too try hard. A pair of black lace underwear I had never seen before ended up in the laundry. When I asked, she laughed and said, "That? That's old. I've had that for years." She hadn't. I would have remembered. She also started going out more. Girls' nights that sounded a little too rehearsed, always with vague answers about who was coming. I'd ask if I knew anyone in the group, and she'd say, "Probably not. Work friends mostly." And every time she left, it was a production. Makeup, hair, outfit changes, perfume. When she got back, it was always late, sometimes after midnight, sometimes closer to 2. I'd pretend to be asleep, and she'd crawl into bed quietly like nothing was off. But I could feel the space between us growing. I noticed the way she said "babe" more often, like a reflex, like she was trying to fill silence with something familiar. It didn't land the way it used to. It felt like a placeholder. And Jason, he came up more often, slipped into conversation like background noise. We were laughing about that at work. Jason said the same thing. "Oh, Jason made that reference the other day." I swear Jason has that same mug in the office. Always casual, always harmless, always Jason. And yet never once did she suggest I meet him. Never once did she say, "You'd like him." Never once did she invite me to grab drinks with her coworkers. Not even during the holidays when company parties were in full swing. One night I came home early from work. I walked into our apartment and found her on a video call in the bedroom with the door half closed. She didn't hear me come in. I didn't hear the full conversation. Just snippets. Laughter. Her saying, "You're so bad." And then silence, followed by a softer tone. "I can't right now." When I opened the door, she looked up like a deer in headlights. "Hey," she said, forcing a smile. "Just chatting with Maya." I nodded. "Cool." She shut her laptop a little too quickly. I wanted to ask, was it Maya? But I didn't. I just stared at her and told myself I was being paranoid again. But my gut, that part of you that never speaks until it has to, was screaming. The final straw came the week after. She said she was going to stay at her friend Claire's place overnight. "Just wine and movies," she told me. "We'll probably fall asleep watching something dumb." She packed a bag. I watched her slide in a toothbrush, a silk sleep shirt, and, I kid you not, a razor and perfume. Who packs perfume for a sleepover with their girlfriend? That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch in the dark, flipping through old photos on my phone. Pictures of us from the past 6 years. Trips, birthdays, selfies in bed. Random moments where she looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Now she barely made eye contact. I don't know how long I sat there, but by sunrise I knew something was broken. I didn't have hard proof. No photos, no messages, no dramatic confrontation, but I didn't need it, not anymore. It was the way she pulled away in the small moments, the distance in her eyes, the rehearsed lines, the disappearing call logs, the perfume, the girls' night bags. It was in her smile, too perfect, in her touch, too mechanical, in her excuses, too easy. There was a version of me that still wanted to believe her, that wanted to be wrong, that wanted her to look me in the eye and say, "Nothing's happening. I love you. You're imagining things." But deep down, I knew the truth was coming. I just didn't know when or how. The night of the party, I told myself to hold it together. I'd spent weeks, no, months, planning this. I'd booked the hall, handpicked the food, paid for the music, called her friends and family one by one to invite them. The celebration wasn't just about Emma turning 30. It was about showing her, and maybe myself, that we were still in this. That even if life had gotten busy and things had changed, we were still solid underneath it all. I wanted her to feel cherished. I wanted to believe we still had that. By the time the room filled up, everything looked just the way I'd imagined. The candles flickered softly, the linens glowed under the string lights, and the soft hum of jazz covered the low buzz of people chatting, drinking, laughing. Her favorite white wine was chilling in silver buckets. Mini desserts were displayed like jewelry. A slideshow of photos from her childhood to now, ones I'd spent hours curating, played quietly on a projector in the background. And Emma? She looked like a movie star. That same black dress from earlier hugged her just right. Her makeup was flawless. She floated through the room like she owned it, hugging friends, thanking coworkers, charming my aunt like they were lifelong friends. People were complimenting her left and right, and she was glowing. But the glow wasn't for me. She barely looked at me all night. She touched my arm now and then, smiled politely when we were near each other. But that spark, the one that used to dance behind her eyes when we locked gazes, it was gone. It was like I had been demoted to event planner. Not her husband, not even her partner. Just the guy who put the whole thing together so she could shine. I tried to push that thought down, to focus on the guests. People kept telling me what a great job I did, how classy the setup was. They said, "You two are lucky to have each other." And I just smiled and nodded and sipped my drink until it felt like water. Then came the toast. I had planned on saying a few words, just a short speech, something light, maybe a little emotional. I was going to talk about how proud I was of her, how she'd grown into this fierce, driven, beautiful woman. I had written it down, rehearsed it in the mirror that morning, even printed out a copy and tucked it in my pocket. But when the moment came, Emma beat me to the mic. She tapped her glass with a fork, silencing the room with a playful smirk. Everyone turned toward her, clapping and whistling. She took the microphone from the stand and stood in front of the projector screen, backlit by flickering images of her life, her baby pictures, college graduation, our wedding day. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice ringing clear over the speakers. "I know this is supposed to be a birthday party, but I just want to say thank you. Really, I've never felt so loved and supported." The room responded with warm smiles and polite nods. Emma continued, eyes scanning the crowd. "I've had a lot of people show up for me this year. Friends who've listened to me vent, family who've encouraged me, coworkers who've had my back when I wasn't sure I could keep going." She paused, smiled again, and then turned slightly toward a table near the front. "And especially Jason." I blinked. She raised her glass. "To Jason, who's believed in me since day one, who's pushed me to be better, who never lets me doubt myself for a second." The room clapped, laughed. Someone even shouted, "Woo, Jason!" I looked over. He was sitting at a table to her right, grinning modestly, lifting his glass as if to say, "Oh, stop it." A few of their coworkers patted him on the back. Emma beamed. Not at me, at him. And in that moment, everything snapped into focus. She wasn't thanking us. She wasn't recognizing the effort I'd put in, or the years we'd spent building this life together. She was shining her light on him. She was giving him credit for holding her up. inspiring her, making her feel seen. Not me, not her husband, Jason. The room blurred around me, but I kept my face neutral. I clapped like everyone else. I even smiled just a little. What else could I do? Stand up and say, actually, I'm the one who paid for this party? Accuse her of cheating into a microphone? No, that wasn't my style. Not yet. I watched her finish her toast, laughing as she handed the mic back, and I felt like the floor beneath me had started to crack. Not violently, not with a bang, but slowly, like tectonic plates shifting under the surface. Nobody else seemed to notice. But I did. I noticed everything. Afterward, people came up to congratulate her, take selfies, compliment her speech. Jason stayed nearby, orbiting close. At one point, I saw her lean in to whisper something to him, her hand brushing his shoulder lightly. He laughed. She laughed harder. I watched them like a ghost at my own event. Someone walked past me and said, "Man, your wife really lights up a room, huh?" I nodded. She sure does. Later that night, as guests began to leave, I stood near the exit thanking people for coming. My smile was automatic. My hands moved on their own, shaking, patting backs, collecting compliments I didn't feel. Jason walked past me with a nod. "Great party, man," he said. I looked him dead in the eye. "Glad you enjoyed it." He hesitated, just for a second, like he wasn't sure what I meant. Then Emma caught up with him. "Jason, wait, I need to grab that folder from you." They disappeared into the hallway again. Same direction as that storage room. I didn't follow. Not this time. What would I have even said? Instead, I walked out into the cold Chicago air. My coat was still inside, but I didn't care. I needed to breathe. The streetlights blurred at the edges. I could hear the muffled hum of the party continuing behind the glass doors, like a scene from a movie I was no longer a part of. I pulled the folded speech out of my pocket and looked at it. The opening line was, "When I first met Emma, I had no idea she would change my life." I crumpled the paper and shoved it into my back pocket. She had changed my life, just not the way I thought she would. I didn't make a scene. That's what surprises people the most when I tell them about that night. I didn't flip the table or storm the hallway or corner Emma with some dramatic, "Who is he to you?" kind of speech. I just left, quietly, like a guest sneaking out of someone else's wedding. I slipped out while people were still dancing. Nobody noticed, not even her. The wind outside hit harder than I expected. It was sharp and honest, the kind of cold that makes you blink and rethink your choices. I walked 2 blocks without even realizing it. Just kept moving, like if I stopped, the feelings would catch up and swallow me whole. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. I ducked into a bus shelter just to get out of the wind and finally looked. 8 missed messages, all from Emma. "Babe, where did you go? You didn't say goodbye? Are you okay? You're acting really weird right now. Call me, please." Then a minute later, "If you're going to act like this on my birthday, maybe you shouldn't have come at all." There it was, the shift. It always starts as concern. Then when they don't get the reaction they want, it becomes something else. A defense, an attack, a blame shift. Emma had always been scolded at that, turning the tables before the conversation even began. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. I didn't want to go home. Not yet. Not to our bed with the decorative pillows and the framed engagement photo over the nightstand. I couldn't stomach the idea of sitting on that couch, the one we picked out together, and pretending like the night hadn't just cracked something open inside me. So I pulled into the first cheap motel I saw. It was one of those old roadside places tucked between a pawn shop and a closed-down diner. Fluorescent lighting, peeling paint, the kind of place you go when you don't want to be found. The guy at the front desk didn't even look up when I walked in, just slid a form across the counter and said, "$79 for the night, cash or card?" I paid with my credit card. He handed me a key, an actual metal one, not a card swipe, and pointed toward the far end of the lot. "Room 11. Don't park under the tree. Birds love that spot." I mumbled a thank you and walked to the room. Inside, the air smelled like old carpet and cigarette ghosts. The bedspread was stiff and floral. There was a small TV bolted to the dresser and a mirror with a crack running through the top left corner. I didn't turn on the lights right away. I just sat on the edge of the bed, still in my suit from the party, staring at the blank wall. There was a dull ringing in my ears. It wasn't even rage I felt. That would have been easier. It was something quieter, more corrosive, like disappointment that had finally calcified into acceptance. This was what it was. I pulled my phone back out and scrolled through Emma's messages again. I thought about responding, not to fight, just to say, "I saw you," but I couldn't bring myself to type anything. Instead, I opened the photos from earlier that night. There she was, standing in the middle of the banquet hall, glass in hand, eyes sparkling under the chandelier. There was a photo of her and Jason, him standing just slightly too close, her smile just slightly too familiar. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know. But I knew. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was certainty. She had looked right past me, right through me, and handed her gratitude to someone else, right in front of everyone, on the very night I built around her. I leaned back against the headboard and stared at the cracked ceiling. I must have laid there for over an hour, fully dressed, shoes still on, the stiffness in my collar starting to itch. But I couldn't move. My thoughts spiraled in loops. How long had it been going on? Was Jason the first? Was this the first time she crossed a line, or just the first time I noticed? Had she planned that speech? Had he? And why now? Why here? Why tonight, of all nights, did she feel so bold? That part stuck with me. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was how public it was, how proud she seemed, like she couldn't wait to say his name out loud, like she wanted everyone in that room to know that Jason was important, that he had been the one lifting her up, not me, not the guy who paid for the champagne, the pianist, the candles, the decorations. Not the husband who spent 2 weeks building a playlist that included every love song she'd ever hummed along to. Not the man who had loved her even when she was hard to love. Through the panic attacks, the mood swings, the weeks she shut down completely and claimed she just needed space. No, not me. Jason. I stared at the motel ceiling until the blur in my eyes became tears, and I let it happen. Not a sob, not a wail. Just quiet, bitter tears that rolled into my ears and dried there. At some point I stood up, peeled off my suit jacket, unbuttoned my shirt, and sat in the motel chair facing the window. I didn't close the curtains. There wasn't anything worth hiding. I tried to picture her back at the party, holding court, laughing with friends, not noticing I was gone. I wondered when she finally realized. If Jason had said something, if she had to lie on the spot, or if she just kept smiling and let the night go on. A message came in at 12:41 a.m. "You're seriously not coming home? You're being childish. We can talk about this tomorrow." I locked the phone and set it face down on the sticky nightstand. No more. Whatever this was, it wasn't ours anymore. It was hers and Jason's, and I wasn't going to be the one begging for clarity. I'd already spent enough time trying to interpret half-truths, fill in the blanks, decode the silences. I'd written her speeches in my head, imagined forgiveness before she'd even asked for it. I'd been scripting my own pain for months, and now? Now I was done. The next morning I checked out of the motel without breakfast. Didn't even shower. Just grabbed my jacket and walked out into the gray Chicago morning. The city felt different, like it had shifted slightly, tilted on its axis while I wasn't looking. Everything was still there. The skyline, the noise, the rush of people. But I wasn't. I wasn't the same man who had walked into that banquet hall 24 hours earlier, full of hope and plans and love he still believed in. That version of me died somewhere between the second toast and the fourth ignored text. I stopped at a diner on the way home, ordered coffee and toast, didn't eat the toast. Just stared into the mug like it might show me the answer I couldn't find in Emma's eyes anymore. I left a 10 bill under the plate and walked out. I didn't go home, not yet. I sat in my car and stared at the street ahead. The city breathed around me. And then I pulled up the contact I'd saved 6 months ago. back when we'd gone through a rough patch, and Emma had once said, if it ever gets too bad, we should just end it like adults. I had looked up divorce lawyers that night, just in case. I never deleted the number. And this time I pressed call. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. Michael Lane, the voice said. Hi, I replied, my voice a little rough. We spoke a while back. You might not remember. My name's... I remember, he said, not unkindly. Is now a good time to talk? That line stuck with me. Is now a good time to talk? I don't think there's ever a good time to talk about ending your marriage. But I said yes anyway. I was still sitting in my car, parked on some random street in West Loop. My coat was draped across the passenger seat, my tie hanging loosely around my neck like it had given up halfway through the night too. It was barely 9 a.m. on a Sunday, and I was calling a divorce lawyer like I was ordering takeout. Michael didn't waste time. He asked a few simple questions. Length of marriage, shared property, prenuptial agreement. We didn't have one. And if there were kids involved, there weren't, thank God. Any suspected infidelity? He asked, his tone flat, like he'd asked it 1,000 times. Yes, I said. Then after a pause, her coworker. I don't have photos or anything, but yes. He didn't react. Understood. We set a time to meet the following day. I jotted down the address of his office, a glass building downtown not far from where Emma and I had once toured wedding venues. That irony didn't hit me until later. Before I hung up, he said, I'll have some paperwork prepped based on what we discussed. If you're sure this is what you want, I can send over the engagement letter and a draft notice to serve her with. I'm sure, I said, but the words came out quieter than I meant them to. After the call, I just sat there in silence. The city was waking up around me, couples holding hands on the sidewalk, a woman jogging with a golden retriever, a guy delivering croissants to a cafe. Life was still happening, just not my life, not the one I thought I had. By the time I drove back to the apartment, Emma still hadn't texted again. I guess she thought ignoring it would reset things. The building was quiet when I walked in. I half expected to hear music playing or smell fresh coffee like I usually did on Sunday mornings. But the place was still, too still, like it was waiting to see which version of me had walked through the door. She was in the kitchen, still in her robe, hair tied up, cradling a mug in both hands like someone in a Hallmark movie. She looked up when I entered. There you are, she said, like I had just gone out for milk. I set my keys down and didn't say anything. She tilted her head. Are we going to talk about last night? I nodded. We are. A flicker of something crossed her face. She set the mug down. Okay, good, because I didn't appreciate being ghosted at my own party. My hands clenched at my sides. You gave a toast, I said. She blinked. Yeah, it was my birthday. You thanked Jason. And? I stared at her. Out of everyone in that room, you thanked him, I said. Not me. Not once. Not for planning it, not for paying for it, not for being the one who made it all happen. Her mouth opened, then closed. I didn't think. You didn't think I'd notice? I asked. Or you didn't think I mattered? She took a breath. That's not fair. What's not fair, Emma? I said. That I spent weeks trying to make you feel celebrated, and you turned your thank you speech into a love letter for someone else? Her expression hardened. It wasn't a love letter? No? I stepped closer. Because I watched your face. I watched how you looked at him. She crossed her arms. Don't start with this. Start? I laughed. I'm late starting. She turned away, walking back toward the sink. I was under a lot of pressure. I didn't rehearse anything. I just spoke from the heart. That's the problem, I said quietly. She paused. Jason's been helping me a lot lately, she said. He listens. He's present. He actually encourages me. The word hit me like a slap. You're saying I don't? I'm saying I felt alone, she said, finally turning to face me. For a long time. I swallowed the lump in my throat. And what did you do with that loneliness? She said nothing. I nodded, pulled out my phone, and scrolled to the email Michael had just sent. I tapped it open and handed the screen to her. What's this? She asked, frowning. A contact, I said. From the lawyer. His name's Michael Lane. He'll be handling everything from here on out. Her eyes scanned the email, then back to me. You're serious? I didn't answer. Wait, she said. You're really doing this? I nodded. I'm done playing dumb. I'm done guessing. I'm done waiting for you to come clean. She looked stunned, like the wind had been knocked out of her. This is insane, she said. You're overreacting. No, I said. I'm reacting. Finally. She stared at me for a long moment, then laughed. Not a real laugh, a bitter, nervous one. So that's it? You just served me papers and expect me to talk to some lawyer? I nodded again. From now on, you talk to him, not me, not until this is over. You're being cruel. I tilted my head. No, Emma. Cruel would be standing up at your birthday and thanking someone else for making me feel alive. She flinched at that. Good. She needed to feel it. I walked past her and went straight to the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag and started packing. A few shirts, a toothbrush, my laptop. I wasn't going to wait for the apartment to become a war zone. When I stepped back into the living room, she was still standing by the sink, stunned. I'll be at a hotel for a few days, I said. I'll come back to get the rest later. She didn't move, didn't speak. I hesitated for a second, not because I doubted myself, but because there was still a part of me, deep down, that remembered loving her. The version of her that used to hold my hand under the table at crowded dinners. The version that used to dance barefoot in the kitchen. But that version was gone, and I couldn't chase a ghost. When I walked out of the apartment that day, I expected regret to hit me like a freight train. It didn't. What I felt instead was clarity. Not relief, not vengeance, just clarity. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting to Emma. I wasn't trying to manage her moods or decode her words. I was just making a decision for myself, and it felt clean. I stayed at a business hotel near the river, the kind with minimal decor and no character. It was perfect. I didn't want character. I wanted quiet. Over the next 24 hours, Michael sent over the draft separation documents. I signed them electronically, told him to deliver them by end of day Monday. He said he'd take care of it. I asked him to include a single note at the bottom. All communication from this point forward should go through my attorney. Simple, professional, cold, exactly what it needed to be. I turned off my phone after that, powered it down and left it on the hotel nightstand. I didn't want to know how many times she called. I didn't want to read the texts. I didn't want to get socked back into that limbo of hope and lies. Let her sit with it. Let her wonder. Let her finally know what silence feels like when it comes from someone who means it. Word got around fast. Jason was fired. Turns out Emma wasn't the only coworker he was mentoring. HR got complaints. He deleted all his socials and vanished. Emma found out after, and her perfect fantasy unraveled. That's when the messages started again. Long paragraphs mixing apologies with accusations. She said I shut her out, that I never let her breathe. But she didn't say sorry for the party, just for being left alone. Reading her words, it hit me. She wasn't sorry I was hurt, only that it didn't work out with him. She never apologized when I held her wedding ring in my hand, only when there was no one.